right, so now you come inside. First thing I like to do is get the lay of the land. I'll walk around the first floor. I'm mentally counting the bathrooms, making sure there's one kitchen or there's something that was hidden. After I do that, I always go to the basement, and I just like to look around. This is a quick 2-3 minute assessment of walking around the basement, looking to see if I see where the water main is, if there's any leaks, if the foundation has any leaks. This for me is a time where I'm looking to see how the house is before I start doing stuff. So eventually we're going to run a lot of water. We're going to, test all the systems. I want to know if it was leaking before I started doing it or leaking after. And then I go upstairs.
Now, one thing to keep in mind while you're inspecting, and I think this is a crucial moment, the entire time that you are inspecting is a marketing opportunity. So you want to be very aware of what you are doing and how you are doing. You want to be very respectful to the sellers. So every time you leave a room, you want to make sure that you shut off the lights as you're leaving. Do not leave lights on. If there's a door closed, close the door. Leave the house exactly the way you found it. Sellers appreciate that. One rule of thumb as well is once we get inside the house, after you do your walk around like Matt was describing, you want to also kick on the heat. Keep something near the thermostat so you don't forget to go back and turn off the heat and put it the way the seller had it. Whether maybe they had the AC on or maybe the unit was off, whatever it is, make sure the house always stays the way you found it.
All right, so now we're getting to the bathroom. Again, it's all about your routine, keeping to the same systems. So I like to treat all the bathrooms similar. I mean, they're all going to be a little bit different, but this is how I do the bathroom. I'm trying to run a lot of water. So the first thing I do, I turn the hot on. I wait for it to get hot. Once it gets hot, I turn the cold on. I put the stopper on. I notice this is a little bit loose. We'll get to that. I let that run. I flush the toilet. I come over here. I turn this on to hot. I usually wait till it gets hot. Then I'll close this back up and I'll let it run. Now this is a shower. If it was a tub, I would put the stopper in and I would let the tub fill up. I would check the faucet and let everything run. So my goal right now is to do the inspection while all the water's running. So I turn this way. I could see here that the molding has some damage. I'm gonna write that up. The doors, they're moderate deterioration, nothing crazy. You got your electric outlets. Any electric outlet that's within 6 feet of water, you want to be a GFCI. So I test it, it works. Make sure you put it back on. I unplug that. I put what was plugged in back. I get over here, and usually while I'm doing the inspection, I'll flush the toilet 2 or 3 times. The toilet itself, I always flush it before I lift it up, just in case there's anything there. Now it's nice and clean. I take my legs, I put it on the sides, and I give it a little shake to make sure it's secure. I'm looking to make sure everything's there. There's no leaks. Usually give it another flush. Now I get over to here. I open this up. I look. You can see the water's getting hot. The fan is on. I'll open up the window. Window's working. Generally, you're looking at caulking, damaged tile, anything. There's nothing really going on here. Everything looks good. I'll close this back up. The door is off its hinges. Close it up. Now, rule of thumb, never walk away from something running. So I'm in this bathroom. You can see this is running. I've done it before. You go to another room, this is running, it overflows, and then you're cleaning the whole house up. You don't want to do that. So stay in the room you're working on. Don't ever leave anything running. If you got to go look over there, shut it off. Once everything's been running, now we're up to this. I'll go over here. I'll shut this back off. Make sure everything drains right. Everything looks good. Close it back up. Flush it again. Put the seat back the way it was. We come over here. I let this start draining out. And now I'm going to come over here. As it's draining, I'm gonna look under. Now you can see they got a lot of personal belongings here, so I might document that we can't, see it. But, I'll take a look real quick, make sure there's no leaks, no signs of any previous leaks. Put everything back, close it up, and there you go. The bathroom doesn't take you that long to do, but you're gonna do this on every bathroom. So if they got 4 or 5 bathrooms, you're gonna do the same thing 4 or 5 times. You're gonna run a lot of water. Usually a lot of recommendations in the bathroom is gonna be adding caulk, around the edges here and there. Same thing with the bathroom, maintenance, little tears, it's usually little things. And that's it.
Now, just like what Matt was describing about the bathroom, the kitchen's very similar, just different appliances. Just like the bathroom, we're going to be testing in all the GFCIs. Normally, it is very common for a GFCI to be connected to one outlet. So you want to make sure that when you test it, you're probably going to trip another area. You want to let the sellers know as well, because that usually will mess up the coffee machine. It resets it, and sometimes they get a little bit picky about that. So you just want to let them know that you did reset GFCIs. The main thing to what you're doing while you're inspecting the kitchen is all the appliances. In the dishwasher, we always ask if they're okay with us testing the dishwasher, and you always want to make sure that there's no issues with the dishwashers. There have been many times where we turn on a dishwasher and it starts leaking, and the seller says, oh no, I haven't used that thing in years. So you always want to double check and confirm that the dishwasher is in operating condition. So let's go ahead and get started. Good? Okay. So we're turning on the water just like we did in the bathroom, making sure cold. You want to check to make sure the faucet, all the different features are working. You want to make sure that this goes back and forth, back where it belongs. Turn on the hot water. Want to make sure if they have a water filter, kick it on. We're not testing the water, but they want to know to make sure that it's working. And that there's no issues. Check to see if it's properly sealed around, nothing's moving. As far as the sink, you're just doing simple items, making sure that there's proper sealant, especially with these underground, or not underground, but under counter sinks, so that water doesn't leak through. We'll also double check that as we go underneath here too. You can also, if they have a stopper, not all kitchens will have that, where you can start filling up the water to make sure that there's no other types of leaks that aren't seen. So we'll start to do that. Right here, we see that this is very high. One thing that we like to do, and this is optional, but we like to take a photo showing the temperature of the water and just doing a thumbs up to show that hot water is received and that it is working. At this point, we would also go ahead and usually run the dishwasher through a rinse cycle. So we would go ahead and turn it on for rinse only, and then we would press start. We're not going to do it right now, but that's what you would do. And it's only a 15-minute cycle, so that you still have to do the rest of the house, so the cycle will be done in time, and then you can just make sure that everything properly drained out. You'll see here, if it doesn't drain out, what you're looking for in a dishwasher is to make sure that there's no sitting water on the bottom. That's why we do rinse only. It's not going to clean anything, but we're just triple checking to make sure no sitting water, there's no leaks or anything like that. So we do that. Now underneath the sink, we'll notice right here, they have numerous belongings blocking access to readily see. So we're just going to inspect whatever we can see and make sure that we don't see any leaks. We'll notate things. Right now I can already tell this is the discharge for the dishwasher. It's too long. There's not a proper high loop. So we would notate that in the report as well. And we see that the water filter is here. Again, water filters are not part of the home inspection, but we would just notate that to letting the future buyer or future owner let them know that there is a water filter underneath here that they would have to maintain as needed. Now, another thing as you're inspecting, with kitchens like this, you're not going to really be moving things, but you just want to make sure nothing's moving, right? The countertop's not moving, everything's properly sealed. As far as the tile, you want to note anything major, any large tiles that are missing. If you see significant areas of grout that's missing, you would want to notate that. And of course, test the GFCIs as well. So every GFCI or every outlet in the kitchen, you go ahead and test to make sure everything properly wires up. and then you would click it to make sure that it that it cuts off. GFCIs anywhere within water, within 6 feet of water, there should always be a GFCI. Appliances typically depends on every home inspection company, but typically they're not included in the home inspection process, but we do it and we include it as a courtesy just for so that the buyers know that everything is in working condition. So let's go ahead and do the appliances. So now we're going to go ahead and test the appliances. Now one thing to keep in mind, we see it right here that this is a gas range. Automatically know in your head, all right, now they're either going to have a propane tank on the exterior, which we know they don't because we already did the exterior. So that means that there's a gas meter in the house somewhere. So we want to make sure, usually the gas meters are going to be in the lowest level of the house, right here where, in New York, so that would be the basement in most houses. So we want to make sure that we find the gas meter and inspect that as well. With the stove, all we're going to do is just simply, it's very non-invasive, but we're just simply turning on all the burners and make sure that they all light up properly. If they don't start lighting up, it could mean that there's something wrong with the spark itself. You can have like a little lighter if you want to try to light it up. But make sure gas has a smell, so you don't want the gas running too long because then all of a sudden you're going to get a big, it's going to light up suddenly right in your face. So that's what you're looking for. You don't want it on too long. You just want to shut it off. Take a photo. That's a great photo to show that it's properly working. With the oven, simply just going to kick it on. Make sure it starts to get hot. We're not going to wait for it to get the temperature. Make sure, unlike what I just did, always make sure to open the oven first, especially if it's a new construction, to make sure you don't want to turn on the oven and there's plastic all inside and it's never been used. Typically in those cases, we won't test those because it's never been in use, and we don't want to be melting something that we don't even notice that might be stored in there. And right over here with this oven, we see right there that the pilot and the gas is on at the bottom, so everything's lighting up. It's going to start getting to temperature, and then all the photo is just going to show a thumbs up of what you're going to include in the app, showing that it's working and it's in use properly. That's what we would do here. Once you're done with the oven, again, we leave everything the way we found it, so you want to make sure you shut it off. Don't leave anything on. Same with the GFCIs. We have a few other outlets here, so we would test those. Make sure that you reset them always. So sometimes that can be difficult where in this area it's easy, but you may set off a GFCI and there may not be a button there. You need to go and find that GFCI reset, so it could be anywhere. We've seen them outside. We've seen them completely other area of the house, but you need to find that reset to make sure that we leave the house the way we found it. It's very important. Customers will make a complaint, and make sure you do your due diligence. When it comes to microwaves, same thing. On Internachi, they have a little microwave tester that you can definitely get. For us, we just simply turn it on, make sure it's working. This one, we see that the microwave is the vent too. So we're going to kick on the vent, kick on the light. Now, since it's a vent, is it a recirculating vent, or is there a area that goes in the outside? So we see right here, they have a vent that discharges to the outside. When we were on the exterior, we saw the vent on the outside as well, so we can confirm that it does expel properly to the exterior. So you would take a photo showing that vent as well to show that it's in working condition and everything's working. Whatever items you take out, put it back in, clear it, make sure you turn off the vent and the light, and you're done with that area. In this case, we see that they have a double oven. We will go ahead and open it, and we see that it's full of belongings. Depending on the type of belongings that's there, I would judge whether or not I can turn on the oven. We're not going to sit here and take out all the belongings. In this case, I see that these are all oven-proof items, so we can go ahead and turn on the oven. But if they had Tupperware or anything that could easily melt, you would not want to turn it on. So you would click it on. Typically, it's very easy. Let that go on. Same with the bottom one, test it, and you're just checking to make sure that the temperature is working. When you're done, do not leave an area without shutting off what you turned on. As far as the rest of the kitchen, it would be opening and closing the cabinets, the drawers, making sure that everything's properly working. All the cabinets, not just a number of them. You also want to check to make sure that the lights are working. You're also going to look out for any of the AC registers. And this kitchen, we also see that there's a door. So every room that you're in, you want to make sure you're testing the registers and get a photo showing that the temperature is working, whether the AC is on or not. We also notice that there's a radiator there. So that would be another photo we would get a photo of to show that the radiator is heating up. You would get a photo right here of your screen pointing to the object and include that in your report. So right here, we see the temperature for the AC and we see what it's reading. And we would include that with every register, especially since there's central AC in the house, you would include that every register in the house and every baseboard or radiator. This house has radiators on the first floor. We also see that there's a door here. So this door is most likely to the apartment. So we would not be inspecting this. We see that they have it locked off. We were already told that there's no access here. It's all paneled up. So even if we were to open this, we can't get through there. So we're not going to destroy, they have it insulated, so we're not going to destroy that. The only other thing remaining in the kitchen would be briefly examining the walls, any minor nicks. People complain. There's general rule of thumb is when a house is occupied, there's always minor deterioration on the walls and the floors and ceilings. That's usually the normal rule of thumb. With the doors, you would inspect them, open them, close them, make sure that they properly lock, and just make sure that there's nothing severely wrong with the doors overall. Other than that, that's how you would inspect a kitchen.
All right, so now we're going to start doing the interior. Normally what I like to do is I'll put the heat up just so I can get the heat working. I mark, in the report the location of the thermostat, and I like to take a basic picture of every room. So how I do it, my routine is I'll turn the light on, I'll take a picture, and then all the bedrooms and other rooms, So what I like to do is the bedrooms, I'll turn the light on, I'll open the windows. Now this window here, I'm not jumping on their bed to open up that window. Sometimes I'll try to go around, but I try not to walk on people's stuff. So what I do is I open the window up, I turn the lights on, I turn the fan on, I take my picture, and then I'll go to every room in that floor. So here I'll take a picture of the living room, I'll go over here, I'll open the windows up. Now again, it's a routine thing. So I like to take my pictures with the lights on and the windows open. The reason being, if the window didn't open, I know mentally when I come back around, I'm gonna call that out. So I'll go around the whole house, opening the windows, boom, 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 taking pictures of everything. And then, now I go back and I start the actual inspection. So now I come to the room here, everything's opened up, and I'm basically closing it and shutting it down. So I'll, document the fan's working, the light's working. I'll go to the window now. I'll close it up. I'll put this back down. I'm looking around the room, making sure everything in the room is good. I'm taking my electric tester. I'm checking each outlet. I'm also documenting and taking pictures of it. So later on, if they say, hey, the outlet wasn't working, I could show them the picture in the report that I did check most of the outlets. Now, yes, there's going to probably be an outlet behind the bed that I'm not going to test, but that's why those pictures are so important. When you take that picture of the room and you show them there's a bed there, if they move in and the outlet doesn't work, it's not your fault. But this is how I like to do it. I check the outlets, I shut the fan off, the room's back to the way it was, and then I move on to the next room and I do the same thing. I walk around usually the same way, checking the outlets. Here, they have a lot of equipment. I'm not unplugging anything. If I could check an outlet, I'll check it, but if there's no empty spots, I will not unplug anything because that's a big complaint. People don't like us doing that. Keep going over here. I'm looking for wall cracks, ceiling cracks, tape, anything that I would like to know about. I'm going to tell them about, or I'm going to call it out in my report. I'm getting to the window. Closing the window up. Looking at the other windows. Now, most standards of practice are a representative number of windows, a representative number of outlets. I like to check more than a representative number, but it also, I want to make sure there's no cracked windows. I might not open every single window, but I'm looking at every window that I can look at. Same thing with the outlets. If it's accessible, I'm going to try to test it. So right there, I'm going to test that. Again, I just forgot. As I go, since the heat's been running, I have everything going. As I see a radiator or a baseboard, I'm checking the heat. I'm taking a picture. I'm all about documentation. In the report, I like them to see the numbers. So if it's 90 degrees, they see 90 degrees. If it's 100, they see 100. So later on, if they're telling me the heat doesn't work, I pull up the report and I could go item by item and be like, oh, in that room, well, it was working, or it wasn't working, and hopefully I called it out. Again, it's a representative number, so I'm checking what I can. If there's a baseboard behind here, I might miss it, but that's the pictures in the report. Again, you're turning on all the lights or turning off lights. You're checking your doors. I'm opening and closing them. I'm making sure everything looks good. Most houses are going to have minor wear and tear. I don't get too involved with that. That's a personal thing. You could spend hours in a house if you're going to call out every little thing. I like to call out, give them a basic rundown of the house. When I'm done, I checked all the heat. I checked all the windows. I checked the outlets. I make sure I go back to the thermostat and I put it back to where they were. Over the summertime, you don't want to leave the thermostat too cool. They're going to come home and they're going to be mad at you. And over the wintertime, you don't want to leave it too hot. Because, a lot of times you'll turn the thermostat up to 90 to get everything to kick on real quick. And if you leave that on and they come home in the house with 90 degrees, you're going to have people that are not happy. So I put it right back to the way they were. And that's that first picture I take. So I match it back up to that. Again, you're looking at vents, you're checking your vents if there's an AC unit, and that's it.
Just like Matt was describing, the overall interior is usually the fastest part of the house because most of the time there's always some type of general wear. While you're examining the registers and so forth, especially when there's central AC, always be on the lookout for returns, right? So you always want to get that money shot photo of the returns. Depending on the unit is going to determine how many returns you find. So usually if there's central AC throughout the whole house, you may have as many as 2 to 3 returns depending on the size of the house. So you always want to get a photo to make sure to document that there is proper returns throughout the house as well. And then also when you're dealing with wood floors, as you're walking, they're going to become very squeaky. So we could see right here, this side of the wood floor is an older wood floor. And then if we look over here, if I put on this light again, we can slightly see the difference in wood flooring here. So we can see that this is a newer floor versus the older one, which explains why this area doesn't squeak as much as this side. Completely normal. It's the age of the house. These floors are most likely original to the house, but you want to make note of that because believe it or not, people will say, well, my floors are squeaking. It's a very common thing. It's not really a deficiency. All right, so we already finished up the second floor. We did the other bathroom, the other bedroom. We did all the closets. We already did this room, and then the seller moved the dresser that was blocking the attic access. So remember we were talking about, since there was a compressor on the exterior, that means that there also has to be an air handler or a furnace. So in this case, this house, it does not have a furnace. It has a boiler. And they have a separate air handler for the cooling system. So when we come into situations like this, if we have access, we normally wouldn't move any furniture. But since the seller was willing to move everything, we will go ahead and go inside the attic area and inspect the air handler and whatever's inside of here. Sometimes there will be a light, sometimes there may not be, but let's go ahead and inside. Okay, so we're in the attic now. We can see that this attic is very, very, very tight. They have a lot of belongings, but we see the air handler right over here. Now, because of limitations, we're very limited in what we can inspect. And the flooring, if you look, the flooring is not properly connected to the joist going down. So we're not really going to be moving around much. We're going to stay pretty much local to where the hatch is at and inspect what we can see from here. So over here, we're looking to make sure that there's proper insulation. We see all the ductwork running around. We really can't see the sheathing too much. I mean, we see little bits and pieces over here, but we don't really see much. We see that there's an old leak over here with some discoloration. Doesn't look like anything active. And it could be this area, you can see right here, older sheathing and then newer plywood sheathing. So we can tell already that this was all an extension and not original to the house. So most likely this part of the house was original. It was probably a garage. I can see the older wood over here. And then this part of the back of the house is going to be an extension, which is why you'll see the different types of sheathing. So remember, houses are telling you a story. Because of the limitations, we can pretty much see basic things. We see that there's proper insulation. We don't see any junction boxes that are open or anything like that. From the air handler point of view, we want to make sure that they're properly attached to the rafters, which we see that. We see that there's a drip pan there in case the unit were to leak. It's properly on a pan. And then we see that there's a drain there and an emergency drain. There's a float right there. So pretty much what the float means is if in the event the unit were to start to leak, the water would go into the pan, and that red float right there that's connected to the pan would then lift up, and then the exterior drain that we saw near the compressor, water would start to come out of there, which would mean that there's a clog and there's something wrong with the unit and the unit needs to be serviced. Since it's an air handler, we're not opening up the unit at all. We're simply taking photos of what we could see. If there's a serial plate on here to see the age of the unit, with this unit, since we did it, we already know that it was installed just a few years ago. And then we're looking at the trap and make sure that there's no issues with the unit. We see that there's an air filter at the end. So we want to make sure that the customer cleans out the air filter and installs a new one always. And just looking at the overall condition, if we see any type of mold or discoloration or anything like that. We see right there on one of the joists or one of those wood, it's not even a joist, but wood pieces underneath the duct, there is some discoloration over there. Now, it doesn't look to be like anything severe. This is attic space. There's always some type of mold growing in attics. But we would note that there is some areas of discoloration and possible mold areas. Again, it's not conditioned air, so it's exposed to very high heat, very cold weather. So you are going to have those areas. You just want to make sure that's not all over. But we would just make documentation of that. Other than that, the unit seems to be running properly, and we've inspected everything that we can from here. We're all set, and we're ready to go ahead into the basement and finish the inspection in the basement.
All right, so now we're getting into the basement. Some basements are going to be finished, some aren't. This basement we're in right here is finished. So it's very important you want to open up every single door. Even if you think it's a closet, I mean the whole house. You want to look in everywhere. You don't want to miss something. You know, there might be a laundry room or a bathroom or something that you totally forgot about. The worst feeling is when you get home and you're saying, oh, what was in that corner? So, you know, you get down to the basement, you do a general assessment of the area, open up all the doors, kind of mentally mark it out where the water meter is, where the electric is, where the plumbing is. I mean, real quickly, I open that up there. I know the water meter's over there. I know the electric's there. There's some stuff in front of the electric, and then the heating and the water heaters in this room. So now, mentally, if I know something's blocking the electric panel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the agent or the client and let them know, hey, you know, this I'll probably be able to get to, no problem. But if there was something bigger in the way that was going to stop me from getting to the electric panel, I'll let them know right now so they could either work on getting it fixed or maybe have the homeowners move it while we're there, or they at least know that we're not going to get to, you know, we're not going to be able to inspect it. So once I do my general assessment, then I kind of just do the same thing I do the whole rest of the house. I start in a corner and I basically work that way.
All right, so now we're going to do the laundry room. Laundry room's pretty basic. What we're going to be doing is just putting everything through a simple wash cycle and a dry cycle. Not a full cycle, you're just simply turning it on to make sure that water goes in, and then we're draining the unit. Usually you would turn it on. This is a newer unit, and you just want to do it under rinse and spin. You would click it on, and then the cycle would start. Then if you want to drain it, you could go ahead and cancel it, and then it'll start draining. So that's one way how you do that. With the dryer, be fairly similar. You're going to turn it on. You just go, we see that the owner has clothes in here, so you're just going to turn it on quickly, and you just to make sure that you see that it's rolling, going on. And we hear some change in there, so they probably have some change in the clothes itself. Once that's done, we're not doing a full cycle. Just turn off the unit. We also see in this unit, we have a water source, a sink. So same deal, anywhere there's water, we should have GFCIs. Now, typically, this is a gas unit, but we see that most likely it's connected to 120 outlets. I don't see a 220 over here, but they also have some additional plugs going into the outlets. I'm not sure what they're for. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to go ahead and reset that because I'm not sure what that's going to. As we have the water on, I also just noticed I heard a pump go on. So that means that that the washing machine and the sink are connected to a sub pump most likely, or some type of pump. It could be an ejection pump if there was a bathroom down here or something. And so we want to make sure that we inspect the pump as well to make sure that there's no leaking or anything like that. So same deal, we just heard it again. We're going to take our photos of the laundry area. We're going to inspect the ventilation of what we can see. Again, it's very limited. We really can't see much. We know that we saw the vent expel properly on the outside. So whatever we can see, the vent is behind here. Whatever attachments we can see over here, we're taking photos of. Same here. Underneath the sink, we will get photos of that as well. Turn on the hot water. Make sure that that's working properly. Get a thumbs up to show that the heat's received. While we're doing that and while the water's on, we would make sure that there's no issues underneath this plumbing. Now this one we can't really see too well, but whatever we can get because they have items underneath there. Otherwise, after we run the water for a little bit, that's pretty much how you would inspect a laundry room. Pretty basic. We're not doing anything invasive. We're not doing a full cycle with the appliances. But as a courtesy, if the appliances are newer, I don't really inspect older appliances in case of touching something wrong. But newer appliances like this, we would just put them through a brief cycle, not even a full cycle, just to make sure that they're running properly.